Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2022-23 season. My name is Dan and I have been excited to make this video because it is the Gameweek 22 tier list video. We've been waiting a while to get back involved with some of this regular FPL content because we have had this little break for all the cup games. But now we're going to put some players on a tier list and I love doing that. If you do enjoy this video, please do like it. Please do subscribe if you're new around here. Let's have a look at the tier list. So, as always, guys, we have got 5 categories and 30 players to put in. People have been going crazy with their transfers this week, so this is going to be a fun tier list indeed. Let's start off with the 30th most popular transfer in at time of recording, who is Almiron, who I'm going to put straight in the avoid section. Not a player I'd be looking to buy right now. If you have him, I'd actually be looking to sell him. Blank game week in game week 25, looking very, very likely. There's so many other midfielders to go for right now, and Almiron's good form from before the World Cup is just non-existent anymore. It's just not happening anymore. Next up, I'm going to put in Botman. I guess I'm going to put him in optional. Maybe a good transfer. It's very difficult to say. We are expecting more clean sheets from Newcastle, but I do worry about that blank game week 25. So I guess we'll put him in a good transfer because he's very cheap and he will get you points in the short term, I guess. And maybe that will actually be worth having him in over some of the other players. And he's only 4.5 million. He's a defender as well, which is often a hard kind of position to fill. There's like loads of midfielders we like right now, but defenders, there's kind of it's a little bit more optional there, so we're going to put him there. Zinchenko, I think, is a very interesting transfer, actually. I'm going to put him ahead of Botman in the good transfer category. He seems to be reasonably nailed on for Arsenal right now. He seems to be the first choice left back, doesn't he, which is very, very nice. Double game week next week. This week, we've got a fixture against Everton, so clean sheet should be on the cards. All in all, I think it's a pretty good pick and definitely an interesting, slightly different option to the likes of Gabriel and Saliba, who I know a lot of people are going for right now. But Zinchenko, cheaper, more attacking, could be a real nice play. Why not, guys? Trippier I still think is just essential because unlike Botman, yes, he does have that blank in 25, but I feel like you've got to keep him for the blank and just bench him for the blank anyway because he's getting bonus points every week. He's like looking likely to get assists every single week as well, and his points are just off the charts every single week. So if you don't have Trippier in your team yet, I know most of you guys do, but he is that, you know, one of those players that is blanking in 25 who I just would get no matter what. I'm going to put De Bruyne, I think, maybe in good transfer. I don't know if he's an absolute must-buy this week. He's playing against Spurs. He does do well against the best teams, I suppose, De Bruyne, so I suppose that's good, but I don't think he's quite justifying his price right now, especially since we don't have a double game week this week. Maybe it's worth waiting one more week to get him, and maybe we can look at some other midfielders who we are going to talk about in this video. I'm sure you know another premium midfielder that you guys want to talk about. He's going to be going into this tier list, but he's going to be going in last. But yeah, De Bruyne, I guess good transfer. I'm not quite happy to put him any higher than that. I think Martinez is an interesting transfer as well. I think he could, you know, 2 clean sheets in a double game week in 22. I can see that happening, and therefore I guess we put him slightly ahead of Botman, around the same area as Botman maybe. Yeah, who's going to score more points over the next 3 game weeks before both of these 4.5 million defenders blank? Martinez or Botman? Let me know who you think it's going to be in the chat. Martinez has got the 1 extra fixture, but Botman is playing for this insane Newcastle defence, so could be an interesting one. Weghorst, I guess we put him in good transfer as well. We've put a lot of players in good transfer right now. I just feel like Weghorst, maybe we drop him down a little bit. He is a player who is not going to be nailed on for Man United forever. If Martial comes back for the second game of the double, that could be a little bit of a problem, so maybe that puts you off a little bit. Let's put him kind of optional because I do think there's a little bit of a risk there with Weghorst. I understand why people would try and go for him maybe, but I feel like there are, you know, maybe some better options in forward slot. A little bit of risk there, but an interesting pick. I don't want to rule him out. He's an interesting pick, but I'm not quite happy to say he's a great transfer, really. Raya, I'm going to put in the avoid section as well. Particularly with goalkeepers, it's more difficult. Unless you want to play Ward in Game Week 25. Does anyone really want to play Ward in Game Week 25? To go for a Brentford player, blanking in 25, it doesn't seem like a great idea, particularly 4.7 million. It's kind of a little bit expensive, isn't it? Like, it's not super expensive, but, you know, it's not like a super cheap goalkeeper or anything like that. So, yeah, a little bit worried about the blank there and how you would navigate that. Goalkeeper transfers in general if you're transferring him in and then back out again in 25, to spend that many transfers on a goalkeeper just does not sit well with me. It doesn't sit right with me. Thiago Silva, I don't mind, but I do feel like I would maybe be more likely to go for Badiashile now. 5 million he is for Chelsea, so you get a slightly cheaper Chelsea defender there. At 5.5 million, we've got Reece James coming back very, very soon. Is it worth just going the extra mile and instead of going for Thiago Silva, going for Reece James? Or maybe some of you guys feel like you've been burnt by Reece James a few too many times already. And speaking of being burnt, how about Burn? Yeah, the fact that he's more expensive than Botman and is unlikely really to get any more points than Botman kind of just says, yeah, there's not really much point in going for him. You've got Botman right there. You're not going to go for all three of Trippier, Botman, and Burn, are you? So, you know, maybe stick with Trippier. Maybe if you're pushing the boat out, go for Botman. I think you'd be an absolute lunatic to go for Dan Burn as well. So we're going to put him in the avoid section. Brighton, another team blanking very soon. Do I trust Brighton's defence enough to go for Estepinian? Not sure I am. So I do want to put him fairly low, but he is, you know, providing a little bit of attacking threat. Quite a lot of attacking threat at the moment is Estepinian. So I do feel like for that reason, even though he does blank in 25, he is a marginal optional player. Wouldn't be high on my transfer priority list necessarily, but I understand the appeal. Saliba, okay, we're actually not going to put him in a void. I feel like because of that double game week coming up, the fact that he's nailed on, like super nailed on, the fact that Ben White isn't necessarily super nailed on, and you can maybe say Zinchenko isn't super nailed on either, I still think you go for Gabriel over Saliba every single time given the option. But I don't hate Saliba necessarily. I feel like now is the time more than ever before that I've been most tempted by a Saliba. I mean, I wouldn't do it personally, but look, I get it. I'll put him in optional. De Gea, again, because of the blank game week in 25 situation, I don't really like him. Don't really like going for him. So I feel like the double game week maybe gives him an optional, but the fact that you don't want to be using too many transfers on goalkeepers, and the blank in 25 means that you might have to do 2 goalkeeper transfers in the next 4 game weeks, which just seems like so much. That's way too much. I do think it does drop him down a little bit, so I'm going to put him in a void. If you've already got him, fantastic, but if you don't, then maybe not. Ferguson, he is possibly injured and blanks in game week 25, and having a 4.6 million forward on your bench who blanks in 25 seems like it's going to cause more problems than it solves, even more so if he's injured. So I feel like he needs to go in the avoid section. Ben Mee can also go in the avoid section for the reason that, you know, Brentford's blank in 25, and they're not like an elite defence or anything like that. It's not like a Botman who you're going to get clean sheets from pretty much every week. Brentford are not quite the same. You know, they play Arsenal next week, for example. You know, is that going to be a clean sheet for Brentford? I don't know if it is. And 4.7 million as well, slightly more expensive than some of these other options. So he goes in the avoid section. We'll put March in the optional. He has been in some very good form, but, you know, it doesn't look sustainable, really. So, like, he's still a good player. Blank in 25 puts me off a little bit. Do think at this point, like, I know I've kind of been saying before, you know, I know some of these players are likely to blank, but I feel like you should go for them. But the closer we get to the blank, the more these players are going to drop down the tier list. So, for example, you would have guys noticed that 2 weeks ago, I had the likes of, you know, Mitoma, top of the tier list. The following week, they dropped down a little bit. The following week, you know, going to drop down a little bit more. As we get closer to this blank game week, the appeal of blanking players becomes less and less and less. And then after the blank, it shoots right back up again. So, yeah, it's going to be a bit of a roller coaster for the likes of Brighton players and Newcastle players and Brentford players. Manchester United, not so much because they do have the double right now. Right, next, Nick Pope. Again, same kind of situation. Like, so expensive. If you want to go in on the Newcastle defence that badly, just go for Botman. Do we want to be spending that much money on a Nick Pope? 5.5 million. He doesn't get any save points because no one can even shoot against Newcastle. They're so good defensively. So, yeah, he's going to be in the void section. I'm going to put him, like, around, like, here, I think. Maybe even lower than Dan Burn. You know what? Almiron probably should not be quite... No, he should be that low. Yeah, okay. I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that. Next up, let's put in Harry Kane. We need to find a place for him. I still feel like he's a good transfer. You know, he's a high-scoring, consistent FPL asset. Would he be a priority move right now, given that he plays Manchester City next and doesn't have any double game weeks anytime soon? Plays Chelsea in a couple of weeks as well. Don't know if it's a priority move necessarily, but he's still a good transfer. Still, you still be up there. Rodrigo, not massively keen on. I do prefer him to some of these other guys. Leeds, by the way, don't blank in 25, which is nice. Let's put him in good transfer, not great transfer. Rodrigo, the problem is possible rotation with Brentford in the double game week. I think Leeds players in general, even though they do have a double, it is going to be a kind of a team there where it could be a bit of a trap. You know, one of their double game week fixtures is against Manchester United, and we have also got the fact that, like Leeds are just not that good. They're okay. They're okay as a football team. I'm going to offend so many Leeds United fans by saying this, but they're not good enough that you want to keep their players permanently, right? So it would be a quick in, quick out, 2 transfers spent on a player who might not even be guaranteed to play. It could work out well. Rodrigo on his day, very good on penalties, the most attacking player in that Leeds United team, but there's risks attached. So that's why I'm not happy putting him any higher than that. I do actually prefer a lot of the single game week players to Rodrigo. So next, Fabian Schär. We've got a expensive burn. We've got an even more expensive Fabian Schär, so I guess he has to go in there. I'm not going to spend too much time on some of these players. Mudryk as well. I guess we're going to have to put him in like low tier optional, like super low tier, because I do acknowledge that he's a good player to pick, a good player to go for, perhaps. But there's just so many other midfielders that we prefer. I don't feel comfortable putting him ahead of even like, yeah, maybe I'll put him ahead of March, but like that would be about it. But I guess that's about right. Like, you know, let's see how he does. I think he's a good player, but there's so many other players we go for. Like Mahrez, for example. I'd rather go for Mahrez. You know, I feel like we have to put him somewhere around the same as De Bruyne. Double game week next week. He seems reasonably nailed on as far as a Man City midfielder can be nailed on. Mahrez seems to be up there right now, playing very well. So let's put him in there. Tony, is Tony an avoid? I think he could be. I think Tony is, I mean, he is a good player. And he has been consistent, so maybe he's not quite an avoid. But again, game week 25 blank, Arsenal fixture next in 23. Like, it's not the best time to buy Tony, is it, really? If we're honest, the best time to buy Tony is not game week 22. So therefore, do we have to put him in optional? I guess so. I mean, I have him in my team. I wouldn't be buying him now if I didn't have him already. So yeah, let's... He could do bits in game week 22, I guess, but let's put him there. Let's put him there. I wouldn't quite put him as high as March because March is like so cheap, and you know, obviously in this real nice vein of form. But Tony is not in as good a form, and he's more expensive, so I guess we put him there. Right, Ødegaard, great transfer, great transfer. If you haven't got Ødegaard already, I think he's going to be one of your top transfer priority targets. Very, very cheap. Very, very nice. 6.9 million. That's not too bad as a price. Double game week next week. Everton this week. We've got Aston Villa after that as well. You know, there's some really good fixtures coming up for Arsenal. Arsenal are not in the FA Cup, so they shouldn't be getting too many blank game weeks coming up, which is nice. So you've got that consistency. And long-term good fixtures. Just a good player to own for the long term. Just a good pick, just in general. He's class. Yes, we like this one. Eddie Nketiah, actually going to put him like higher than Trippier as a must buy. I think Nketiah is kind of really up there. Like, I mean, maybe we even move Trippier down one, because when I feel like comparing these two players, if you don't already have Trippier, one, you're crazy. Two, you know, if you haven't got him already, is it just worth waiting a couple more weeks, potentially? No, actually, Trippier's goated. Trippier is goated, but Nketiah is even more goated. I really, really do think he is transfer target number 1 when it comes to Arsenal. His numbers are elite at the moment. Good fixtures, double game week, everything's looking super good, and there's less competition for kind of players you'd kind of want to pick in the forward position, is there? So you can see on screen right now, look how many midfielders we got on screen, and then for forwards, we've got Harry Kane, Tony, Ferguson, Weghorst, pretty much it, right? The popular transfers in right now in terms of forwards. So I think there's plenty of space for Nketiah in your team. Whereas midfielders, there's loads. Here, let's have another one. Saka. You like Saka a lot. Better numbers than Ødegaard right now. And the fact that Ødegaard's kind of catching up in price to Saka does certainly make Saka a more appealing option. If you can afford to go for Saka over Ødegaard, I probably would do that. The fact he's on penalties, the fact he's playing so directly at the moment, and everything kind of looks like it's going down that right-hand side for Arsenal at the moment, I feel like Saka is just that elite FPL option. So if you can afford to go for Saka over Ødegaard, I definitely would. And therefore, I'm going to put him in the great transfer category as right now the third highest player on the tier list. But we might add some players above him. But before we do that, let's add someone below him. Mitoma. I'm going to put him in a great transfer. He is not as high priority as some of the double game week players, but he's still a fantastic option at 5.1 million. This player is insanely good. He is so good, and it's really going to be up to you. And it's really going to be a case of who do you have in your team. It's really going to be a case of how is your team structured. Can you afford to go? Can you even afford to go for the likes of Saka and Ødegaard and maybe some of the Manchester United midfielders? Maybe you can't. And if you can't, then therefore Mitoma is maybe going to be your only option in many ways. Plays Bournemouth next. It's a really good fixture for a player in insane form. Looks so good right now. He is a great transfer. I just don't feel like he's the best transfer. I'm sorry. There are just a few players above him. I've got 4 players so far above him. You guys are probably going to have Trippier already. But, you know, if you haven't got the likes of Nketiah, Saka and Ødegaard, I feel like they're just slightly higher priorities than Mitoma right now. And I feel like the fact that Mitoma has... basically, in the next 4 game weeks, Mitoma plays 3 fixtures. Your Arsenal midfielders... your Arsenal midfielders play 5. Your Man City midfielders play 5. Even your Man United fixtures players, they play 1 more fixture than Brighton as well. So if you're making that kind of comparison, it does edge it towards these Arsenal guys, really, doesn't it? And obviously Manchester United guys as well. Speaking of, let's add them in. So Luke Shaw, I feel like he is a must-buy, a higher transfer priority than Trippier in Gameweek 22, and a higher priority than Nketiah as well. I feel like you've got to get him. Like, there's no reason to not get him at this point. Very cheap price, well, fairly cheap price. Playing in the defender slot where there's not too much competition for kind of your picks. There seems to be no reason to go for a Manchester United defender who is fairly attacking, does well for bonus points, and is playing 2 home fixtures against 2 weak attacks. It makes so much sense. And playing in a good defense as well, in a team in form. There's no reason to not buy it, sure. Sort it out. If you haven't got him already, you've got to get him. You've got to get him. Next up, Rashford, who is even higher priority. Rashford is your captain for this game week. He's arguably your triple captain for this game week as well. So another must-buy. This is like the heaviest I've ever gone on the must-buy category, I know. But honestly, I feel that strongly. I feel that strongly about these Manchester United assets. And the one other player from Manchester United, the highest... the highest transferred in player, the most transferred in player for Game Week 22 so far. Where do you think he's going to go? Bruno Fernandes. Where is he going to go? Do you think he's going to go ahead of Rashford? Like maybe ahead of Shaw? Well, I feel like he's super high priority. But maybe there are arguments to not go for Fernandes. I feel like if you have the opportunity to go for Bruno Fernandes, you absolutely should. Arguably more than Trippier. Arguably more than Nketiah. In fact, I would probably put him here. If you have the opportunity to get him very easily, then I put him here. So maybe I should be keeping him there, technically. But if you've got other priorities in your team, and you're going to have to take the likes of like -4s and -8s, and you've got other issues in your team, other fires to extinguish, in order to get Fernandes, then I think he drops down to still a great transfer, but not a must-buy. So, therefore, is he a must-buy? I don't know, guys. What do you think? I feel like I can understand, like, a lot of you guys, if you were to tell me your teams, for example, or suggest me some ways of getting Fernandes in, I feel like he's not right for everyone. And therefore, it's difficult for me to say must-buy, because it feels like I'm putting in the pressure for you guys to buy Fernandes, which I don't think you absolutely have to. I think it's a good idea if you can, but maybe you can't. But you probably hope you can. So therefore, he's a must-buy. We're going to do it like that, guys. We're going to leave the must-buy category with 5 players in priority order there. Hopefully, you guys are going to have 1 or 2 or 3 of these players already. Otherwise, it's going to be maybe a struggle to get some of the other guys. But, you know, I really would be tripling up on Man United this game week. Rashford, Shaw and Fernandes are the 3 to go for. Without a shadow of a doubt, they are the 3 to go for if you can. Arsenal players are obviously there as well, who are, you know, good players to go for, ready for their following double game week. And then after that, At that point is when we start talking about Mitoma, which I know is going to be a little bit controversial because he's just a joy to watch, so cheap, and you know, very likable as a football player as well. So therefore, I'm going to leave the tier list like that. I think it looks pretty good. Guys, what do you think? What do you think about the tier list? Are we looking good? I hope so. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you did enjoy this one, please do leave a like. I certainly enjoyed making this one. I don't know, for some reason, when there's loads of transfers flying about, and we've got double game weeks, and we've got blank game weeks, it makes the tier list and thinking about transfers so much more fun to me. It really does. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm an FPL nerd. No shit, Dan. Anyway, guys, please subscribe if you haven't done already. And aside from that, I'll see you tomorrow for more content. Buy, sell, keep, avoid tomorrow. And I will see you later, mates. Bye-bye.